Hello, and welcome to the Comedian's Paradise. This is the podcast where we speak to comedians, comedy producers, and comedy club owners from across the comedy world. Now, today's guest is one of the best impressionists out there. He could do an impression of me in about after this podcast. He's going to sound exactly like my voice. He sounds like Donald Trump. He sounds like Boris Johnson in two. Whatever impression you can do, he can do it. If you want him to do it, he is the English equivalent of Michael Winslow from Police Academy. He's been on Britain's Got Talent. He puts and he's also much cooler. I know he's either a Maccam, Sandancer, or Geordie, so I'm gonna play it safe. I'm not too sure which one, but we'll find out.
Well, actually, I'm a monkey hanger, mate. So
okay.
It's probably the worst of them all.
What's a monkey hanger?
So basically, I'm from Hartlepool, right? Do you not know the story?
Right, let's start it off. Welcome, Danny Posthill.
So you're right, mate. That was good. Right, let's get the monkey hanging story out the way. So basically, what happened was, right, it was the Napoleonic War, and we thought that there was a French spy invading, and they hung it. And it turned out it wasn't a French spy. It was actually a monkey. So they call us monkey hangers. And our mascot for Hartlepool United is now called Hangus the Monkey. And the person who used to be Hangus the Monkey ended up becoming mayor of Hartlepool because he said, if you vote for me, I'll give you all a free banana. And we're still waiting for the free banana. So that's how messed up Hartlepool is. That's worse than the Geordies, the Maccam, anything you want to call anyone from the northeast. Monkey hanging's probably the worst, you know. So we're going to get complaints from animal rights at the beginning of this podcast, even though I had nothing to do with it, you know.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you an offensive question that a lot of, being Asian, I get asked, where are you really from? I also get all sorts of dodgy questions. But for yourself, you get the question is, what do you think of Geordie Shore?
What do I think of Geordie Shore? It's not a programme I've ever wanted to watch, really. I've sort of seen clips and I just thought it's not for me. Just like Love Island and things like that. They just don't interest me at all. They're just not my cup of tea. Fair enough, there are people who do watch it, you know, but I'm just like, nah, sorry. Because I just look at it as like, you're just people. I mean, what did Billy Connolly say about Big Brother? And he just hit the nail on the head. He says, there's people sitting in a house, watching people sitting in a house. And I just thought, well, that's exactly what it is. It's just bullshit. It's rubbish. Do you know what I mean? So it's just not for me, basically, programs like that. So anything with I love a good series. I love a good stand-up special. You know, anything that requires talent and hard work. That's what...
No, it's true.
That's what I like to watch, mate, you know?
Yeah, that's true. But... what is it like being on Britain's Got Talent and having those people judge you like Simon Cowell? Oh, that's not good, or that Amanda Holden, that's good.
Yeah. Do you know what? It was weird because when I first went on there, I didn't really have a lot of respect for Simon because I know he wasn't really anyone who was interested in comedy. So I just thought, you know, but I actually seen a podcast with him recently on. It was, what's it called again, the bloody podcast? An interview with the CEO, the day in the life of the CEO, something like that, right? So anyway, he was on there. And I tell you what, fair play to the man. He's had his struggles over the years trying to get where he needs to be. And he's done it, and he's done it very successfully, you know. And I'm actually quite grateful the fact that he's built that show to give me that exposure for me to go on there. Because I remember when I first done my first audition, I'd done my stuff, and Amanda said brilliant, you know. David Walliams said brilliant. Alicia said brilliant. Simon went, well, it was all right, and everyone went boo. And he said, why did you do Billy Connolly? And I said, well, because we're in Scotland, Simon. And Amanda went, yeah, we're in Scotland, Simon. I went, yeah, there you go, Simon. Next question. Now, we didn't like that because obviously it's his show. Just some like working class lad from Hartlepool just turned up and basically had control of the audience, you know. And he went, I didn't think your Beckham was any good either. And I went, oh, really? I says, well, okay. I said, if you didn't think it was any good, I said, I'm sure you can do better. Off you go. And everybody started going, do it, right? anyway, he just said, I thought, he said, listen, he said, the reason people like you is because you're funny. And I could say there were scripted bits in there that he knew he was going to say anyway. But it was quite funny because at the beginning of my audition, he said to me, well, what would mean more, the Royal Variety or the money? And I said, well, the money, because I want to buy a house. And then he went, well, to be honest, Dan, he said, I actually was on the last Royal Variety. And then David Walliams took the piss out of him and says, actually, Simon, he said, there's a difference between going on and saying 7 words and introducing on Calabro than actually hosting the Royal Variety like I did, because he hosted it, So then when I done Michael McIntyre, on my Michael McIntyre bit, I went, yes, ladies and gentlemen, Michael McIntyre, who also hosted the Royal Variety performance. Yes, me and David hosted. Simon said 7 words and introduced on Calabro. Oh, and it brought the house down, and he didn't like that, because obviously it's his show and it's his baby, and I get it, but it was quite. But do you know what was quite interesting? After I'd done my first audition, I was getting stopped off everyone on the street. It was quite incredible. And before I'd done the semi-final, I was really nervous, and I said to the guy in the studio, I said, mate, I couldn't nip out and have a couple of beers, because there was Fountain Studios. Well, that's where it used to be at Fountain Studios. There's a row of bars. If you come out the back of the studios, you go across to Wembley, and there's a row of bars. He said, well, look, Dan, he said, I'll just say you've gone to the toilet. He said, don't be too long. I said, I won't. So I went into this bar, and it was packed. And I walked in, and everyone was talking, and they just went silent. Like on a sort of like a Wild West film. And you walk in, and everyone's just gone quiet, and they looked at me, and I thought, oh, shit, this must be the audience that are coming into the studio to watch the semi-final tonight. And anyway, I've walked in, and I've gone to the bar, and I've said, hey, I said, can I just have a bottle of Desperado, please? Anyway, this woman comes over to me. I said, oh, hello, you all right? And she just looked at me and went, this is a private party, could you please leave? It's me thinking I've been recognised off the telly. And they were like, yeah, it's a private party, could you please leave? So, yeah, it sort of brought me back down to earth at that moment, And then obviously after the semi-final, and then the final, I mean, it was just stressful, mate, because I had producers telling me what I should and shouldn't say and all that kind of thing. Don't do this impression, they're not famous enough. They were telling me not to do Johnny Vegas, and I'm going, well, Johnny Vegas was in Benidorm at the time, which was one of the biggest shows on ITV. Britain's Got Talent's on ITV, I'm thinking, at the end of the day, I just said, look, this is what I'm doing. And, once I'm out there, there's nothing you can do about it. But I do know that Act 2 being on there, they've sort of been dictated to by producers, and they've just said, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. Whereas I put up a fight with them, and I said, no, this is what I'm doing. Sorry, I'm going to be the one that looks like a dick, not you. Do you know what I mean? So that's the thing. We're doing big team. Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely, yeah, exactly. And you don't know how they'll edit as well, because I've heard from the other side that they've made some comics look really bad. I know that, but that's what I've heard. And
yeah. Well, there's a guy called Andy Davis who does singing impressions. He does the Bee Gees. He does like Barry White. I mean, he's brilliant. And they made him look ridiculous when he was on there. And he's superb. I've seen him work live. I've done a showcase with him before, and he was brilliant. It just goes to show the power of editing is frightening.
Yeah, they did that with X Factor. I think one of the girls, some Welsh lady, Zoe Alexandra, they made her look like a mad nutter, but they edited different videos to try and make it look like.
Was that the girl who come on and done Pink?
Yes.
Yeah. And the producer told her to do Pink, and he's like, well, hang on. She's like, hang on, the producers told me to do this, Oh, yeah, they had her hook, line and sinker, didn't they, bless her?
Yeah. And I'm not surprised. And I didn't know this with the auditions, that they have a separate audition before you go on stage. And I think it's basically the producer's like, who's going to be good TV for being shit, and who's going to be good TV for being good.
Well, do you know where I didn't have that? They saw me at the, the Hen and Chickens Comedy Club in Islington.
Okay, yeah.
I'd done a gig then, and they saw me there. And Jeff Whiting was the guy who basically was emceeing, and he had the, it's really funny because you know who Jeff Whiting is, and I'm doing the impersonation of him. And people who are listening to this probably don't know who he is, but if they do know who he is, they obviously know that he does stop talking. Do you know what I mean? It's funny when you meet Jeff, because you're just like, how many words can you possibly fit into a sentence? Do you know what I mean? But you know what? Jeff gets a bit of stick off people on the circuit, and I know he does, but he's always put gigs on. He's always given people work and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And he's a trooper, Jeff. Do you know what I mean? He does, and he gets me corporate still now. You know. Well, anyway, he basically got me in front of the producers on Britain's Got Talent, and he. I remember they rang me and they said, "Oh, can you? What's your favourite place? Like, what's your preferred place?" I said, "Oh, Manchester," and they said, "Well, what about Edinburgh?" I said, "It's too far because I'm in London the night before." "Don't worry, we'll get you a flight and we'll pay for your hotel." And I'm going, "Hang on, yeah." So I sort of half knew I was going to be going through, you
Oh,
know.
okay. That's bloody nice of them.
Well, I'm just hoping Simon Cowell's lawyers don't get involved because I'm not sure whether I should. But then again, there was nothing in the contract to say that I wasn't allowed to say anything about that,
Yeah.
you know.
I think unless it is disparaging of them and it's really brutal, then I don't think they're too bothered, are they?
No, of course they're not. And they've probably forgotten who I was anyway. It was 10 years ago when I was on this show.
But it must feel good going on there, like with the green room treat. Hello?
Oh, hang on, there was a connection problem, mate. Hang on.
Hello? Oh, here we are.
There we go. We're back.
It's all right. It's all good. So, for anyone that doesn't know, we just had a temporary delay. It's all good, everyone. But yeah, we're just chatting about. We're talking about what was it like being in the Britain's Got Talent, and then like with the green room, the setup, and like before the show and during the show and after the show. Like, what was that like all about?
Yeah. I think with the green room situation, you were just amongst the acts, really. There wasn't many. Very rare you saw the judges. I bumped into Ant McPartlin. He was having a cigarette outside the studio. While I was on the phone to me mum, and I said, "Oh, mum," I said, "I've got someone who wants to talk to you." I said, "You don't mind, do you, mate?" And he was just lovely. And he was on the phone to me mum for about 10 minutes. Ant and Dec are just national treasures. They're gentlemen. You know what I mean? I would always have time for them. And it was a good experience. It was just a bit stressful because I just knew what the repercussions could be if it did go wrong. You know, when you're trying to kick on in an industry which is ruthless as it is. You know.
Yeah, it is. It is as Eddie Brimson says. It is for a lot. Most it is an. Would you say it's a dog eat dog industry?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, as much as we all like to think we're friends, but you know, if someone has a gig and your best friend is also offered the same gig, you know, and it's between you two who gets the gig. Of course, you want to get the gig. It is what it is, mate. And at the end of the day, I think it's just survival, really. It's just all about making a living and surviving, and you know. But also, it is enjoyable. You know, you do get benefits from being a comedian. It is fun because you get to be creative. It's like what Jennifer Saunders says. I read her book and she said you just basically play acting as a grown up. And it's brilliant because you used to do it when you were a kid. So you basically haven't grown up. You've just you're still living like a kid, you know? That's probably why I'm still so childish, you know?
It is a game on stage, isn't it, with the
Of
audience?
course it is. And that's one thing I've always said about comedy is never ever take it personally. If someone doesn't like you, they won't like you because the audience members take comedy personally, but I don't. I just go, okay, well that didn't. It's like a game. It's like a formula, and you go, well, that formula didn't work. You know, it's just formula reaction. You know, it's a science, really, if you think about it like that.
How much is comedy to do with psychology?
I think it's a lot to do with psychology because you have to be brave enough psychologically to take risks, especially when you're trying out new material. You know, how many comics have you been in a green room with and they've went, "Oh, I'm trying out new stuff tonight," and they're straight on the defensive before they do it? How many comics, and also how many comics walk in and go, "Try new stuff tonight," and they have this aura about them that they're just going to absolutely smash it? Not many, do they?
No.
Yeah, so it's all about having the confidence, but at the same time, you need those insecurities to keep yourself grounded at the same time and go, well, you know what? I can't be getting too ahead of myself because this audience could bring me back down to earth. If this material that I think is groundbreaking ends up being the biggest pile of shit they've ever seen, you know. So you've just got to be true to yourself, but you've also got to be very confident and use your insecurities to your advantage as well.
What do you mean by insecurities to your advantage?
Well, because if you go on too confident for your own talent, then it's not going to work in your favour. Because what's going to happen then is the audience are going to be like, well, because sometimes you can write something. You've got to be very strategical when you write your material, as you well know. And you've got to go, if you just wrote a load of stuff and went, that'll work, and you're just overconfident with it, you go on and it dies on its ass, then that will probably make you 10 times more insecure. Whereas if you go on with a little bit of insecurity and go, well, actually, I need to look at that gag again, and I need to look at that gag again, it makes you a bit more careful about what material you go on and use, and how you conduct your material and what order you put it in and various other different things,
You always keep yourself ready.
Absolutely, that's exactly what it is. Because if you had no insecurities, it just, it just wouldn't work, I think. I mean, how many comedians do you know were insecure? We all are.
Oh yeah, every single one. Even the big ones, but I don't meet them as much. But I know that I heard that according to Robert Greene, the mad man on psychology, he says that the higher up they go, sometimes the more insecure they are because they're more scared of losing what they've built up.
Well, that's it. That's exactly what it is. You've got this big empire, then all of a sudden it's gone, and you think, well, how am I going to live with that? So you work 10 times harder to keep yourself at the top.
With Britain's Got Talent as a whole, so you were like a pro beforehand, you had a lot of great gigs, but after that, how did it change things for you? Like, did you get a lot more headline gigs, or did it just allow you to do like corporates and other? What did it give you that you didn't get before?
What Britain's Got Talent will do. One thing I've discovered is I'm more of a corporate act, and I'm getting a lot more work on the corporate circuit. I still do the comedy clubs because at the end of the day, they're my gym. You've got to go on and you've got to still run new stuff out and all that kind of thing. But corporate wise, that's a lot. That tends to be a lot more what I'm getting at the minute. But then you get the likes of Axel Blake, who he won it, didn't he? And he was on tour. He got a tour off the back of it, But and it all depends who your manager is. I mean, at the time, my manager was an agent who booked holiday parks gigs, and she booked Warners and all that kind of thing. She wasn't in the know with getting a tour out around theatres and stuff like that. However, not taking anything away from Axel because I think he's brilliant. And what he puts on social media, I think, is really funny. And that guy works really hard too. You can see his work ethic's incredible. But for me, it's corporate work that I'm getting a lot more now, which is great, and I'm enjoying it. And it's nice that, because a lot of comics will say to you, corporates are difficult. Once you get into the swing of them and once you start doing them, you end up getting an act together which becomes bulletproof. And a lot of listen, there'll be the odd one which will be difficult. Like I had one a few weeks ago, and it was just a load of electricians. They've been drinking all day, and I got away with it. If to put it lightly, do you know what I mean? I got away with it. But then people were coming up to me saying, "Oh, you were brilliant. Sorry about that table over there. They were talking while you're on." I was like, "Listen, I don't care. I've finished now. I've been paid. The money's mine." But yeah, it's just one of them things. But I do love the circuit. The circuit's great. And there's certain gigs I just love doing. If I haven't done a gig for it, like I love doing the Last Laugh in Sheffield for Toby Foster. I think he's a brilliant promoter. I love doing gigs for Jim Howarth. I haven't done a gig for Jim in a while. He's a great guy, and do you know what I love about Jim as well? And he needs a mention because he looks after the acts. And if you look after your acts, right, you will have a better show, guaranteed. I don't think I've ever done a bad gig for Jim Howarth.
I've heard, I interviewed him on the podcast, and like he said, with his ex-military discipline, like he really prepares for everything. And that's
exactly what it is. It's because he's ex-military.
I heard amazing. Yeah, people have said great things about him, and he's told me on the podcast that he's had big TV names, that he's only had maybe 3 or 4 cancellations because of how he treats the acts. And he says even if he does really well on that night, if he makes a bit of extra, he will pay the acts.
He does. He does. He's a promoter and he's a man of his. He's a great promoter and he's a man of his word. But one thing I do tell him off for is like, Jim, I'm trying to lose a bit of weight. Can you stop putting midget gems in the dressing room? Because you know I like them.
No, he's amazing as well. Yeah, I would like to go and see one of his gigs when I get the chance at some point. But I've heard generally up north though that gigs are better and they pay more, and the circuit is better than down south. That's what I've heard as well.
It all depends where you go. I mean, there's very rarely I gig in London now, unless it's either a corporate. I mean, I do the Backyard. I love doing the Backyard. I think that's a great club. You know, and I just think the atmosphere in there is always electric. It's always a full room when I do it as well. You know, and what I do now is instead of going to Edinburgh, if I write a new 20 minutes, I'll ring Andy from Comedy Unleashed and I'll say, can I just come and do 20 minutes? And he's like, I've got some new stuff. If some of it lands, great. If some of it doesn't, it doesn't really matter because I can just put some clips together and then I can put it on TikTok and then you're keeping yourself relevant on your socials as well then, you know?
So with someone at your level, how do you manage to do well with new material without needing to do the open mic nights to test stuff out before you?
Do you know what? I just look back at when I first started doing comedy and I go, well, I just went out on a limb and I just went, okay, this is what I'm doing, you know? I've just got to go out and just, because when I do new material, I try to memorize it because if I don't, I'll end up trying to read it off the sheet and I'll throw myself and I'm not 100% confident with it. Whereas if it's rehearsed, it pisses you off a little bit if it's really rehearsed and you go on with the full confidence and it gets half a laugh and you go, oh, shit, well, that wasn't worth the effort, was it? Well, it was, because obviously you need to find out whether it works or not, you know? Yeah, like I say, it's... I mean, there are comedy clubs around here. Like, if I want to try some new stuff, James Kilverton, he's a great guy. He's a brilliant comic. He's a great promoter. Phil Smith, I'll ring him up. Matty Oxley, those guys. Hilarity Bites, Neil Jolly. I'll ring those guys up and I'll say, I've got a new I just want to try out some new stuff. And they'll be like, yeah. And they'll always give me a spot, you know? So there's always opportunities to try out new stuff. And I feel like you do need to go back to the drawing board, otherwise, especially doing impressions, because your act becomes dated otherwise.
Oh, okay, yeah, definitely.
You know, I mean, thankfully for me, a lot of the people who I'm doing in my set I've done for the past 8 years because they're still relevant. You know, Michael McIntyre, Alan Carr, Jimmy Carr, you know, even politicians. You know, you've got like I suppose Keir Starmer, right, to update him because he's only been the Prime Minister for a year. Obviously Trump, but even when I was doing Biden, I was still doing Trump as well because I think I'll be able to do Trump when he's dead. I think I think that's an impression you can just do forever, you know, because it's just such a unique voice and it's just such a distinctive accent and it's mannerisms and Trumpisms. I mean, you don't even have to really write material. It's just a case of like he says things and you just elaborate on it a little bit. I mean, I done a gag the other week about well, you know, when he was saying, I'm going to turn the Gaza Strip into a paradise. It's going to be great, you know. It's going to have it all. It's going to have hotels. It's going to have golf courses. But the main attraction is going to be the Trump Mosque Hotel and Casino. Pray, play, stay, you know. And it's just like, you can just go, oh, that's in. There you go. Brilliant. He said that, which has led me to think of this and add this in, you know. So which makes it easier to write stuff.
I can imagine, yeah. With impressions as a whole, I know that musical acts get a funny reaction from circuit acts, but when you're an impressionist, what's a misconception that people get when they find out that you're an impressionist?
Because they think you don't have material.
Ah.
But I just think that's arrogance because a lot of people who say that have heard other people say that and they've just been sheep with their opinions and they've never really seen your work. I mean, I've got a friend. He's a good friend of mine, brilliant actor. He's called Jack Lido, and he said he's heard people say, "Oh, you know, well, he's just an impressionist, isn't he?" And Jack's like, "Well, have you seen him work?" Like, you know, Jack would always stick up for me. But I couldn't really give a shit what other acts say on the circuit, mate, if I'm honest with you, because they're not the ones paying me wages unless they're a promoter.
Oh, that's true. That's true. That's the biggest thing.
Do you know what I mean? Listen, people can have opinions, that they're entitled to it, but they're not going to change my life, you
No.
know?
And with doing an impression, if someone wants to do an impression, what would your advice be? Do they take pictures of the facial expressions? Do they listen to me? What's your if someone wants to get better impression, what's one thing
There's a
you'd say?
number of things. I mean, a lot of people break it down. Alistair McGowan breaks it down. Rory Bremner, Culshaw, they break it all down. With me, I just watch. I just sit and observe. And I pick this up, pick that up. He does this, he does that, he does that. I was doing an impression of Douglas Murray a few months back. And I watched it back and I went, no, there was something I missed. Because what I find with Douglas Murray is he has this voice, which is very slow. And it is very patronising at times. And I understand that. But what he does is it's a lot softer than the Douglas Murray I used to do. And it was more like aggressive, whereas he's softer. And I needed to, so all I needed to do was just reel it in a little bit, you know, because what I started to do was sound a bit more like David Starkey, you know, when I was doing it. So it was, sometimes you just need to sort of change the level, change the rhythm, change that slight little thing just to perfect it, you know. I mean, I remember when I started doing Diane Abbott, I look back and I go, oh my God, that's terrible. It's not really very good, you know. And then as I watched her more, and I studied it and I started tweaking things. I suppose it's like you've got a sound desk with your voice and you're just tweaking it and you're going, okay, that needs a bit more bass. That needs a bit more, you know, it's a bit more croaky round here. Just change that a little bit. And when you do the mannerisms, he always does this, or, you know, there's certain little things that you pick up on what people do. And I remember, because Piers Morgan's quite a difficult impression to do. Someone was asking me if I could do Piers Morgan the other day. And I can't really, but you can cheat it a little bit, you know? Like with Piers Morgan, he always goes, hang on, with all due respect, you know, starts losing his breath, starts going mental, you know, starts throwing his pen around, you know. So he's got this sort of, I can do that side of him when he's sort of losing it and he's having a go at someone and he's, you know, pestering them for an answer. But then when he's talking normally, there's nothing really there. It's quite bland. But if you can pick up on a certain thing of how they behave in a certain way and pick that side of the impression up, then you got your hook then, and then you can sort of get into it, you know?
Oh, okay. And then you build it from there. So
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Like jiu-jitsu. You got the full mount, you got the side control.
You got the basics, you got the fundamentals, and then you elaborate on it.
Okay.
So do you do jiu-jitsu then?
At the moment, yeah, but I damaged my finger. That
Who doesn't get injuries?
That sounds
love
like the most
jiu-jitsu.
tempest. It's a good sport. A lot of great people in it. It's great for your mental health as well.
It's incredible. I mean, I haven't been down for a while because I've been busy, but I do no-gi. I used to do judo, and I love judo. And I think judo's underrated because the throws in judo and everything are just incredible.
Oh, without a doubt. And that's involving as well. I think there's some no-gi judo as well developing.
There is. I mean, there's a gym in Hull. There's a guy, because I was talking to my old judo coach. He's a sixth dan. He's a red and white belt. And he come and see me. I was doing the comedy lounge. And I caught up with him. And we were just talking about bits and pieces. And he said there's a guy in Hull and he does an MMA gym. And basically, he has an MMA gym and he basically adapts the judo style within MMA. And I think it works really well. Well, Ronda Rousey's a prime example, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Khabib as well. And the Islam Makhachev, they use judos for a lot of the throws and. Yeah.
Well, they do, because there's a lot of. I mean, originally their art is sambo, so they've done, which is obviously a mixture of striking, and it's got jiu-jitsu in there, it's got judo, but a lot of it is and wrestling as well. You know, Greco-Roman wrestling's in there as well. So. But I mean, there's a guy I train with, and he's from Dagestan. He's called Sultan. And he used to train with Khabib when he was Khabib was only about 14 at the time. but Khabib's dad taught him. And I mean, the guy's an absolute weapon. You get in a clinch with him, and you're just like, please God save me. You know what I mean? He's just frighteningly strong. I think the only time I've ever got him is we were in a scramble, and I farted and he laughed because in the pressure. So
Yes.
So we were in a scramble and I farted and he laughed and I managed to get on a heel hook and I just wouldn't leave go and he tapped and I was like, oh yes. So first time, but the rest of the time he just throws me about. I got very lucky then,
Yeah, so basically a good tactic is make sure you have a regular diet of baked beans, put them off, and then boom.
Plenty of fibre before you go to class and then, you'll win most people,
Yes. But yeah, jiu-jitsu is not a gentle art though. When they say it's a gentle art, it bloody well isn't, no.
It's not, but what I find is, I mean, I'm 39 this year, so what you find is when you get older, I'm sure you're a lot younger than I am. Well, you look a lot younger than I am. But you start to rely on your technique more because you're not as fit as you used to be. So when you're rolling with lads who are a lot younger than you try and go, right, okay, should I go for this throw? If I was 25, I would have done, but not now because I'm going to try. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to lose a lot of my energy. You think about conserving your energy more, I think, as you get older. So your technique becomes better.
I heard that I've not done much no-gi, but I've done gi. I heard that gi helps if you're older because you can grip the younger guys. And
you've got a grip. There's loads of collar. There's strangles using the gi and stuff like that. I mean, my judo coach said he was out one night, and this guy come over and started on him, and he just collar choked him, just dropped him to the floor. Like there's some great collar chokes using the gis, and sometimes using your own gi. I mean, did you watch UFC? Have you seen the first ever UFC?
I know that's one of the reasons why BJJ is popular because Royce Gracie beat a lot of people just using BJJ, right?
Royce Gracie beat Ken Shamrock in his second fight because it was a tournament back then, and there was no weight classes or nothing. And I think what it was, the Gracies knew that no one else really knew submission apart from Ken Shamrock. And Ken Shamrock went in. I think Ken went in overconfident, like we were talking about before. There was no insecurities there. He just went in and he was like, "Oh, who's this guy in pajamas?" You know what I mean? And he thought he was just going to easily win. He thought he was just going to be a piece of cake. And he went for a leg lock. And Hoyce used his own gi to choke Ken. And he was like, "Whoa, hang on, where did this come from?" Yeah. It was brilliant to watch. It was like Ken was just like, "Whoa, what happened there?" It was madness.
BJJ is now treated like it's offshooting a little bit from MMA, and I heard that people say that it's they use it as a side-on thing, and a lot of people that win now are more wrestling-based.
Well, do you know what? Wrestling, I mean, I remember I was out for my birthday one time, and there's a couple of lads who I know, Robbie Brown, he fights bare knuckle, and Paul Hartburn, he won, Ian Freeman's got his own MMA association, and he was like I think he was either lightweight champion or welterweight champion. Anyway, he was one of the two. And they were out, and they used to train at a gym that I train at. And they were winding me up. They always wind me up. They do. They're just like, they're that kind of people, It's how we sort of embrace our friendship by taking the piss out of each other, basically, Because if they didn't, I'd be thinking there's something wrong. And they were torturing me, saying, "Oh, you're going to come train at our gym tomorrow? You're going to train at our gym tomorrow?" I was like, yeah, I'll come. Bear in mind, I was hungover to shit. And I went, and it was wrestling class. And I got through it, but I'm not going to lie, mate, I thought I was going to die because wrestling, I'm telling you, wrestling, those guys are they're cardio machines, and their endurance is on another level. Because we're wrestling, you throw them or you take them down. Luckily, I've got judo experience, so I held my own. But you take them down or you get taken down, you get back up, and then you're starting again. Whereas with jiu-jitsu, you think to yourself, do you know what? I'm a bit knackered. I'm going to sit in side mount. I'm going to stick my arm in his face for a bit until the buzzer goes because I can't even be bothered to go for a submission. I'm not tired,
Yes,
But yeah, it's fun. I love it, though. I think it's great. And also, I think it just gives you a massive grip on reality of what fighting actually is. Because you see people fighting outside and you're like, what they're doing, and they're tired within 30 seconds. it just goes to show how fit you have to be to fight.
Yeah. That Cobra
There's a
Kai.
guy who I know, he said to me, he's called Howard Bolt, and he's always trained at the gym that I train at, and this guy's tough, do you know what I mean? And he turned around to me and he went, thing is, Dan, fighting's easy. He said, it's just winning that's hard.
Ah, yes. It is, but it also makes you less likely to want to fight, considering you see so many people in the gym that could beat the shit out of you.
Yeah, and you know how difficult it is. And you know what's funny when especially there's so many guys I've seen, I've trained with, and I've done jits. Is they look like they've just sat and read bloody encyclopedias all day. Do you know what I mean? They don't look like the stereotypical alpha male that you would think. They look like really geeky, and you think they've got a dynamite guard, and you're watching them put a triangle choke on someone with ease, and they're just spinning into an omoplata, and they're just like incredible.
Yeah. It's also funny when you're beat by a guy that's much smaller than you, but they're so quick, slow, slippery, and then they got you in a bow and arrow choke.
Yeah, exactly, mate. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I mean, there's a guy who trains at our gym, Kai he's called, and I've seen him. They've had him in side mount, and he's choked people from his back using the the arm with your leg. You get your own leg with your arm. I've seen him top people with that one. Yeah, from his back. And I tell you, it's good to watch, mate. A guy called Eric Paulson, because some of the submissions he has, follow him on Instagram. He's always putting videos up with techniques, and they're just brilliant. And you're going, oh my God, I never thought of that. And it's little simple things that he does, and he's brilliant. He's superb. I mean, he trained with Danny Posthill. Now, Danny Posthill knew Bruce Lee very well because he'd done the nunchucker scene in, was it Game of Death? In one of his films years ago. But what people forget is with Bruce Lee, his system Jeet Kune Do had a lot of grappling in it. It had a lot of catch wrestling in it as well as Kung Fu. It was basically one of the first real MMA styles years ago. Yeah. Because Bruce Lee used to train with a guy called Gene LeBell. Now Gene LeBell had the first ever MMA fight really years ago. I think was it in the 60s, and he fought a boxer. And he just took the boxers down and choked them or arm locked them. I can't remember exactly how it unfolded, but I knew that Gene LeBell won. But because boxing was such a big sport, promoters didn't want people to know about it. And I do know that, Helio Gracie, back in the day, well, he fought Kimura, didn't he? I think the fight lasted something like ridiculous. It lasted was it an hour, like a couple of hours or something like that? It was just crazy how long they used to fight for.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, the Japanese guy beat him with that, and then he taught him how to do that.
He beat him with a Kimura, yeah, and that's why it's now called a Kimura, yeah. So yeah, it's fascinating. I love it, especially going into the history of it all. You can go right down the rabbit hole on stuff,
I've heard it's fishy though. I heard what they say about jiu-jitsu being there's a lot of things that have said like, oh, it started in this city or that city, and then and one of the things is it's called Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when it came from judo, so it's technically Brazilian judo, isn't it?
Well, judo originally come from jiu-jitsu,
yeah,
the Japanese form, and then that's obviously Helio trained I think he trained in Japan, and then he took it back to Brazil, and then because to my coach John Dawson, he trained with Hoist Gracie a couple of times, and he said, what's the difference between traditional jiu-jitsu and Gracie jiu-jitsu? And Hoist basically said that all as it is he said grab me wrist. So John grabbed his wrist. He said, this is traditional jiu-jitsu. He said, pull me. And Hoist pulled back. He said, this is Gracie jiu-jitsu. And Hoist went with it. He said they tried to make it more of a flowing art form as opposed to a more rigid and, putting the submissions on, it just comes across as more smoother with the transitions.
Oh, okay.
That's what I've been told. I suppose that's what I find as well, but I think judo is very underrated too. There's so many good judokas out there who I think would be brilliant in MMA, but they choose not to,
Yeah. I heard the same with Dan Cormier. He was talking about Russian wrestlers. So many of them would like dominate the UFC, but they chose not to get involved.
Yeah, yeah. Well, obviously, concussions are not good, are they?
Yes.
I've
Look at
got a
Conor
couple of
McGregor.
friends who fought MMA, you know, and well, one of my friends, he was saying about his concussions. He said he had a really bad one. I think it lasted 6 months. He was
Oh,
having like, you know, trauma for 6 months over it, you know. And I'm like, come on, mate, you got a couple of businesses, you're doing well for yourself. Is it really worth it? Just train and enjoy it, you know. Just do a bit of grappling.
yeah. But I think that don't they say that with Conor McGregor, some of the reasons why he's gotten a bit off the rail is because of some of the head trauma he suffered.
Yeah, and cocaine, I think.
Yes. That's the biggest thing. He's he's I don't know. It's funny with him. It's a bit of a sad story in a way because he was quite admirable coming up, but then
Oh,
as soon
he
as
was
the
superb. And do you know what? He gives the UFC a lot of promotion, you know. I mean, but it is sad. But then I suppose, I mean, I'd done an impression of Conor. I was doing a dinner, and it was you know, there was a lot of guys in who'd done boxing and stuff, you know, and I was like, you know what I love about Conor McGregor is he made a lot of money for the UFC, you know, but he made his drug dealer even more, you know. But I mean, if he beat the shit out of me if he had me, you know. But it's at the end of the day, comedy's comedy, isn't it? If people want to take offence, that's entirely up to them.
well, as long as you're not going to Ibiza nightclubs, I doubt you're going to see him.
Oh, well, do you know what? I looked at that story and everyone was like, Conor McGregor bullying that man. I'm like, hang on. See, you know when someone says something on social media and everyone starts pointing the finger? I'm like, hang on. Before you start pointing the finger, let's look at what actually happened in the first place, right? Apparently, the guy went over to him 3 or 4 times and started taunting him and saying, who would win in a fight out of me or you? Well, can you imagine? He's trying to have a night out with his friends and I mean, firstly, I think the guy must have been intoxicated on a lot of alcohol and drugs in order to go and say that to Conor McGregor, because I wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
But I think when you've done a bit of training, you understand it and you go, yeah, I've been punched in the face before, it hurts. Like, imagine getting punched in the face off him. Like, he just knocked you clean out because there's a reason he's at that level. He's not just famous because he's famous for no reason. He's famous because he was an extremely talented and extremely developed and highly trained athlete. You know,
yeah,
so the man's dangerous with his fucking body. So just don't. And it's like poking the bloody lion's cage, isn't it?
yeah. But I heard also with the fighters that I was speaking to an MMA fighter because they're so confident defending themselves, they can be quite combative and they don't like being told what to do. So they are inclined. Some of them, that's what keeps them away from doing dodgy things.
Yeah, it does. I mean, but can't imagine a lot of them would be in nightclubs because if you think
No.
about it, they've got a strict diet to adhere to, and you know they've got to cut weight for fights and stuff like that. I can imagine they'll go out and celebrate occasionally, but I can't imagine them being proper party goers, you know. But I do know lads who have trained and they don't do it anymore, like they don't do MMA anymore. But I know that they're lethal, and I'm like, you know, if someone actually went up to them and tried it on with them, they'd be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. It's
So it's madness.
yeah, you never know what's going to happen. And but we probably all need it as comedians though, especially with Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. I think MMA and jiu-jitsu training should be essential for comics.
Yeah, but can you imagine, right, if like Chris Rock ducked and went in for a double leg, or he went in at an underhook and then went behind him and suplexed him onto his head or something like that. I mean, who'd get sued for the most money? Do you know what I mean? It's like it's crazy, isn't it? Even though everyone sees the guy who's been attacked and go, well, hang on, the guy attacked me, so I defended myself and I decided to suplex him on his head. Like people would go, yeah, but he's trained. He should know that. He should have restrained him in a better way. Like you can't win. It's mad.
No, that's true. But I don't want to get slapped, so I think that's
It's good to know. It's good to know for restraint. I
yeah.
think police officers in this country, I think they should all be at least a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh yeah. But I've heard a lot of things. I heard that the average person will maybe have 2 or 3 traumatic incidents, but I heard with a police officer they're likely to encounter 300 or something like that.
Well, do you know, there's a girl I was talking to. I didn't want to say seeing yet, but she was saying to me, she was in the police force, and she was telling me that she, you know, some of the situations she's been in, she was driving to work thinking, because I just think nowadays the police don't have the power that they should have, you know, and people take the piss out of them. I think it's terrible, you know. I mean, she was telling me that she went into a situation where there was a guy off his head on drugs, so he threw a glass at her. The glass missed her head by seconds, could have killed her. So she has to radio to say that she's put the red light on, which is for the taser. Anyway, she got back up, they arrested him, took him away. She then got a disciplinary because she put the red light on to someone who had mental health problems. She was like, hang on, he was off his head on drugs. And I'm thinking, is that the state of the police force at the minute? Like, honestly, when I go to America, I do not fuck with the police. I'm telling you now.
Oh, yes.
Those guys, like, you know, you do not break the law in this state. I'm telling you, you know, that's how we need to be. But then I get the police brutality and all that stuff as well. You know, it's a fine line.
I'm guessing some of them, though, they've had so many situations like that must fuck with their head.
It's PTSD too. Absolutely, it's frightening. It's really scary. You know. I mean, it's funny when comedians moan and they say, "Oh, you know, I was traumatised, that gig, it was so awful," and you're depressed and this, that and the other. And I'm thinking, hang on, you know, there's people who fight in wars. This is the way I look at it, you know. People fight in wars. People just didn't like your stuff that night. Fucking move on.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Crazy.
Now, I definitely want to chat to Steve Owen Williams at some point, because he was in the police for 30 years or something like that.
He was. I've only spoken to Steve briefly. He's a really nice guy, though. Great impressionist, too.
Oh, yeah. And amazing comic. I remember him seeing him at a gig, and it was just, it was incredible.
Yeah.
So, for anyone that's sort of listening right now, and if they were to ask you some advice, well, one of the things that I want to ask of, people talk about, like, silliness with promoters, silliness with comedians. What would be your advice in terms of the good, the bad, the ugly you've seen with promoters? Like, if they're a promoter, what are the worst things you've seen in terms of contacting you or booking acts, and what's a way for promoters to behave the acts, do you think?
I think everything should be contracted, really, because if you've got a contract, you've got something in a written agreement. I mean, I get the fact that you've got, you know, emails and stuff like that. There are certain promoters who are so organised. I mean, Rob Riley's great. He's bang on the money. Jim Howarth. There's some promoters who just send you a text. But then sometimes they're my mates who I know, so I don't mind that, you know. It's when you get cancellations and stuff like that. I mean, I was running a gig in Aston Marina, and it got to the point where I was like, oh, do you know what, promoting's not for me. I can't be bothered with it. Do you know what I mean? It was just your booking acts, and if someone cancels on you... but I had an agreement with the venue where it was like, if you cancel within 2 weeks, they get 25% of the fee. If you cancel within a week, they get 50% of the fee. If you cancel anything after that, they get the full fee, you know? I feel like promoters need to be harsher with venues in order to make sure that comedians are looked after, because I've seen a guy called Stevie Gray, and he put something on Facebook, and he won't mind me saying this because he openly put it on a social platform, saying how many cancellations he's got and he didn't get a cancellation fee and stuff like that. I feel like people just go, oh, I'll be a comedy promoter. It must be easy. All you do is you sell your tickets, you pay the comedians when you get paid, and then you make a load of money from it. I mean, I get the fact that they're taking the risk by putting it on the line by going, oh, well, you know, I'm the one selling the tickets here, so I'm the one taking the risk. But it's also your responsibility to make sure that the comedians are getting paid, because without the comedians, you wouldn't have a show. And I also think that when promoters take longer than 2 weeks to pay you, I think it's a massive piss take. I won't do a gig now for anyone if it says 30 days. I'm just like, I won't do it. Because because you've got expenses on the road and stuff like that.
I heard from someone that they told me that it took 2 months with one of the payments.
That's ridiculous. There should be interest paid. That whoever paid, I mean, fair enough if someone has an illness, right? I'll take that. That's fine. If someone's ill and they've got a lot going on, I understand that. But I mean, I've had excuses like, oh, I need to go. I'll go to the bank on Wednesday. I'm like, fuck going to the bank. Just get your phone out, go on your fucking banking app, and pay me. It's your responsibility. You got me the gig. Just transfer me the money over via bank transfer. That's how easy it is today. It's 2025. You know, it's bullshit. And I think a lot of comedians now. The problem you've got now is though, if we did set up a union where you went, you know, you got to be part of this union to book gigs. And if you don't pay the comedians within 2 weeks, then, you know, you're out of it and you can't book gigs anymore. Like the Agents Association, that's a bit more of an old school one, though. That's for, like, Clubland-esque acts, you know. I just think it's just difficult to do nowadays because anyone can be a promoter. But there are acts who will go, I won't work for them because they're a bit dodgy. I know they've done this before, blah, 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 blah. But then there are also new acts who want the stage time. So they're happy to do it. So then some promoters take advantage of new acts like that, you know? But then before they know it, they're not going to have many gigs anyway because if they're not going to get good acts on, people are going to stop coming to their shows.
Yeah, that's true.
You know?
Yeah. I saw something really ridiculous on the Comedy Collective, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. There's a comedian, I won't say the names, but it's a female act and there's a male promoter. One of the things that's happened is she was at a gig and she was getting all sorts of heckles and like one guy said he was going to follow her home and all these dodgy things, and he didn't deal with that, and she complained about it, and he just said, oh, they're regulars, they come. And then it was a bucket split. So she sent him invoices, she's got a hold of it, and he's not paid her in 2 weeks or whatever. And she's made this public on the Comedy Collective.
So she should. That's wrong. If someone, I mean, listen, there's banter with hecklers, and there's people crossing the line because if she's a woman on her own going to a gig, like, listen, I'm not going to, well, I might sound sexist, I couldn't give a shit, but genetically, men are stronger than women. So if you're a woman going to a gig and a bloke says to you, I'm going to follow you home, psychologically, that's going to fuck with your head whether you think the guy's joking or not, which is not going to put you in a good frame of mind to do a gig, which is then going to think to yourself, oh my God, this promoter said that's all right. Well, what if I go to another gig and that happens again? It's just going to put people off wanting to do comedy. It's bullshit. That guy should have dealt with it and he should have kicked the guy out. It's ridiculous. And I tell you what, fair play to the comic for putting that on there because I just think it's ridiculous when people get... It's all about treatment of acts. And I think if an act's getting treated like that, that is completely wrong. The guy should have been kicked out. I wouldn't have let the guy back in, actually. I done a corporate, actually, on Saturday, and these guys were hammered on the front table, and I dealt with them for the first 5 minutes. But they weren't heckling, they were just being arseholes, you know? Because he said, excuse me, mate, are you a comedian? I said, I'm not going to answer that question, mate. I said, but one thing I do know is you're fucking pissed. And everyone just went, we're in the cheered, you know? But he was just being a knobhead. And then his mate went, you're out of order. I said, no, I'm not out of order. I said, he started it. I said, I've just walked on. Which then can make the atmosphere of the gig. Anyway, luckily it went really well in the end. But yeah, it's things like that. But anyway, those guys are not invited, but it's like they do it as a yearly event. And he said, fuck them. He said, they're not coming back. Which is what that promoter should do to that guy, by the way. If anyone makes any suggestions to women and says, you know, I'm going to follow you home, that's bang out of order. I would have kicked him out. It's disgusting.
Yeah. But that's what's going on there. He is quite a famous promoter, though, because I hear acts always talk, and I was hearing in different London gigs talking about the guy not paying people. And
right, okay, who is it?
All the way from Wales. He's not someone that could do any harm, but I'll message you his name in the log.
Okay.
I could show you the Facebook post that was on there, and I'll send. No, never mind. I'll send you the name of the act anyway.
Yeah. Well, good for you, lass, for fucking speaking out and saying that, you know, because at the end of the day, like, comedy's for everyone, and I think it's, you know, everyone should have an opportunity to get out there and do it. And if you're getting held back by some dickhead shouting out he's going to follow you home, nah, sorry, that's out of order.
Yeah. I've also heard that Darren Cannell told me something funny as well. he talks about females get bothered by male promoters, but he said a male promoter bothered him and said, and the fact that even the fact he tells him he's not that way inclined, he's still bothered him.
But he's still trying to have sex. Do you know what? It's like once you hear no first. I mean, listen, mate. You know, you have a few drinks. You like to flirt with it. I suppose it's like it's a double-ended sword in this one, isn't it? Because you're going, well, oh, you know, how do I chat a girl up now? Because I go, well, I don't want to go too, you know, much, and then they might say, oh, well, he said something inappropriate. Because some people take it too far the other way as well and go, he sexually assaulted me. Well, what did he do? Well, he said this. You know what I mean? So it's a fine line of how you approach it as well, you know? But if someone's just been a complete sleazebag, then you're like, look, just fuck off. I'm not interested. Do you know what I mean? Once you've said that, or once you've even made any hints of that, they should be like, right, okay, fair enough. You know, I accept the fact that you don't want to have sex with me. Just go home and have a wank. Do you know what I mean? Don't fucking bother them anymore.
That's straight to the point. But, one thing I want to also ask, have you had any, so when someone's messaged you to book gigs for being a pro act that's doing corporates and all that, what advice would you give them in that? Because I'm guessing you must get all sorts of requests. You're saying, listen here, Sonny Jim, it's all in cash. £110 up front. It's in Norwich.
Oh, I've had some. I had one guy wanting me to do 2 hours, and he wanted to give me 100 quid, and it was all the way in Cornwall. I said, mate, I'm not even going to respond to that. You know, people have not, because obviously that guy clearly doesn't understand comedy. I mean, we both know it's hard enough getting the first 20 minutes together, you know, but 2 hours, come on. Anyone who's got 2 hours worth of material are on tour. And you want to give them 100 quid, come on, you know. But then a lot of the time people message me now, if you've got an agent, I would say put them onto your agent, because everything's above board and everything's in a contract, and, you know, you've got more chance of getting a fair deal. Or alternatively, if someone wants to book you for a corporate, take half the money up front, because then if they cancel, you've still got a decent whack.
Oh, okay, that's true.
Yeah. So that's one thing I would say about that.
Yeah. I do that if occasion I get a few corporates, and what I do first of all is I make sure that I get the half of it done beforehand, and then because the worst thing is if you're chasing them for money, you're not going to be able to pay the acts, and that puts both of you in the
absolutely
pay before the show the full amount.
Exactly. I mean, I know act two. I mean, one of my agents, Joe Martin, she's a Rottweiler. If I put someone onto her, she takes the money off them up front, like the full fee. You know?
Yeah.
And there's times I've turned up and I've went, oh my God, the room's not set out right, blah, 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 blah. She said, well, it doesn't matter. She said, if you go on and they ask for it and it doesn't work, she said, you've videoed the room and you've showed me. And if you die in your ass and walk off after 10 minutes, they're not getting the money back. Fuck them. It's their fault.
Yeah.
You know, but a lot of the times it goes well anyway. We just have our insecurities, don't we?
Yeah. I think the whole process of chasing after money is a load of nonsense. You should
I think it's ridiculous. I don't think it should happen. You should be paid. I think promoters should say a specific time frame of payment. You know, when the amount of times I've seen emails come through and they say the fee and they don't say the time scale of payment, and I have to say to them, what's the time scale of payment? Because people need to know. Whether you've got a load of money in the bank or whether you don't have a lot of money in the bank, it's nice to know where your finances are.
Yeah.
If you worked in Tesco's, right, you know you're getting paid at the end of the month. So why should it be different? I mean, can you imagine, right, if you said to a plumber, they come round to fix your toilet, nice one. Oh, thanks, mate. Yeah, payment will be in 30 days. They tell you to fuck off.
Yes, they would.
You know? It's unbelievable. So why doesn't it apply with comedy? Are we too nice? What is it? You know, I think it's wrong. I think it's really wrong, and I think something should be done about it.
But the biggest thing is in some instances like 21 Soho hasn't paid a lot of acts, but I think a lot of the times comedians aren't really as together we should be on certain things, and two, we're not the best business people. No, I shouldn't say it, but for the most part, comedians want to just do their art. They're not really
You do want to do
business
your art,
people.
but I think you need to look after your business at the same time as well. And I think if, get a load of comics together, just all walk to the venue and say, I'm sorry, this is ridiculous. You owe him money, you owe him money, you owe him money. Film it, expose them, and say you're taking the piss.
But
And then if they don't pay, you just raid their fucking till.
That's good. That's good. But that was the case with Laughing Pod,
I
wasn't
think
it?
I'm the wrong person to ask about this because I'm turning this whole thing into a fucking gangster film, aren't I?
Sorry.
That'd be a good idea for a film. All these comedians are owed money, and it just gets to the point where they're just so pissed off. They've just went, do you know what? Fuck this, and they've just turned into criminals because they're owed money off people.
So, if there was a criminal gangster film, would you be Tony Soprano and would I be Chris Moltisanti or something?
Oh, I'd put me as the worst one because it's my pet peeve when people owe me money. Put me as the worst one. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'll do it in the film, and I'd get a lot of satisfaction watching it back. Going, I showed him. Do you know what I mean?
Now, for anyone that's listening in, what's the one-word advice for making sure? Yeah, what are signs that the promoter is worth working with, and what is your advice for comedy? So yeah, making sure, what are signs that they're dodgy, and what are signs for surviving the comedy game?
I think signs that they're dodgy is you can just see when they message you that it's nothing's like set in stone of what they want and what they're doing. If they send you a message and say, "Oh, yeah, I'm after a couple of comedians for this event," what kind of fee would you want? Or because they're unsure, they don't know what they're doing. If they ask for your fee and you tell them and they go, "Oh, well, I wasn't expecting to pay that," you say, "Well, fine, don't do it then." But if you get an email off someone and says, "I've got a closer, X amount of money, middle, X amount of money, opener, X amount of money, MC, X amount of money," like when Rob Riley puts his emails out, they're set in stone, they're bang on the money. You know it's all organised. You know it's all there. You know you're going to get paid. And by the way, he's a brilliant payer. I mean, whenever I've done a gig for Rob, he's paid me the next day. And he's like, oh yeah, it's either cash or it gives you the next day. And he's like, send me the invoice, mate. Send me the invoice. And I'm like, I'm sending him it on the way. I'm on the train sending him it. Do you know what I mean? And he's great, So things like that, you just know you're going to get treat right from that particular promoter. But if it's someone who's like unsure, just don't go there because you're going to turn up. And if they're unsure about, I'm looking for a couple of comedians for this, and they don't know how the night's going to be set up, then what are the audience going to be like? How's the room going to be set up? Jim Howard's another one. He makes sure that the room is set right. He makes sure his emails are all very on the ball, things like that. I think I'd look out for. How organised they are with their approach is how organised their gig is going to be.
Okay. Oh, yeah,
that's what I would say.
And what about in terms of dealing with the nonsense of comedy?
Nonsense as in, like, what do you mean in particular?
Dealing with silly things from promoters, other acts, or like silly audience members. What's your way to stay with your head above water?
Well, I mean, when you're on stage, you just deal with how you would deal with it on stage. You have your own sort of intuitions of how you would deal with it on stage because of how you work, your style of comedy. But when it comes to promoters and they're, like I say, if promoters are acting strange, just call them out on it. Excuse me, mate, you haven't got back to me. I've told you I'm free on this date. Why have you not got back to me? Is this gig on? Like, if you start having to ask questions like that, you start questioning things. There's red flags there, Just be direct with people. If another act mentions anything about your set, I just laugh it off a lot of the time because I just think, well, I couldn't give a shit what they think. And if another act has to say something and try and put you down, then 9 times out of 10, they're dog shit. They're not very good because they have to go out the way to say someone else isn't very good, or they have to make a sly comment about someone.
Yeah, that's
That's what
true.
I'd say. It's just I can't be doing with it. It's just you know, it's playground stuff. I just want to go to work, earn me money, have a good time. I mean, there are a lot of comedians who I love working with, and I love turning up to the gig and having a good time with them, having a laugh backstage. Because if you're in a good green room and you're having a laugh in the green room, everyone's more likely to have a good gig because they're all in good spirits. And that's how the gig should work. And promoters should encourage that too.
And for anyone that's listening in now, how do they get hold of you? And where do they follow you? What's your just let them know.
So, my social media, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Danny Voices, on Facebook, Danny Posthill Comedian, Instagram, Danny_Posthill, and Twitter, my Twitter, my X handle is Posthill Danny, and I put my agent's email address and stuff like that on there, and then obviously if they want to book me for a gig and stuff like that, or they want to watch me stuff, I'm on YouTube too. I mean, like I say, just typing in my name on Google and YouTube videos come up and stuff like that, so you can see me stuff on there as well. So
Okay, well, guys, you know where to go to find out about Danny. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. The next episode that I've got going on is with Mags, where she's works in mental health, so we're gonna talk about that. I was supposed to speak to Katie Copstick, but she cancelled. Never mind. She's got something going on, so hopefully we get a chat with her soon. And then we're going to talk to Paul Savage, a guy who survived many wars at the Edinburgh Fringe. So I'll see you guys soon. If you like the episode, give it a review on Amazon or iTunes. If you didn't, don't.